Let's see what we have here. This is the way I got it. The top was off. I did get the top as well as the fence, the miter, and the motor. The motor does not work, I'm told, so that'll probably be a whole separate video. Hey, if you like what you see here or you found it interesting or useful, why don't you give that subscribe button a click. Maybe give us a like, maybe hit the little bell thingy, lets you know when we put up new videos. What? Huh? Oh, my lawyer would like a word with you.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
As we walk around here, let's see what we got. We got a little paint spray up here. It's got the door. Those are missing quite a lot, and it's got the correct door. You can tell by the font, if you will. It's got the cool 50s switch. Those are in high demand. I'll get you in here. You can see that. Okay, it's got the iron base on there. This one has the bullet motor. You can see that has been removed. Let's go around the other side here. Pretty good shape. No holes, no big dents, nothing like that. The wheels have both the wheel and the lock, both of them. It looks like it's currently got a 9-inch blade on it, but it is a 10-inch saw. As I look down here, all this seems to be in pretty good shape. These tracks are cast iron, not die cast. I like to see that. It's got a spot for a splitter or a riving knife. It's actually a splitter because it doesn't go up and down with the blade. That would be a riving knife. This all looks good. This is the key right here. Okay? I'm trying to wiggle those bearings. They neither go in and out, nor do they wiggle in any direction at all. And they spin just fine. So, well, I will tear it down, and I'll probably make a couple of notes on how to get those bearings out if you need to. I won't need to on this one. So that's great news. All this stuff looks in remarkably good shape. So I'm excited. The motor doesn't work, but I feel pretty confident I can get that going. It's almost always, those Delta motors, the bullet motors, are unique. They have what's called a shorting necklace in them. And that's almost always that's what it is when they don't run. Either that or they have like a lever on the inside, or you can change it from clockwise to counterclockwise rotation. And if you don't get that set right, that can also cause you some problems. Very seldom is it something catastrophic like a burnt winding or something. But we'll get into that when we get into that. Let's, since the top's already off, let's start the teardown on this one. All right, let's start with the blade. This one does not have the Allen key on the inside, but it does have a couple of flats here. You need a very skinny wrench. I just happen to have these lying around. And what do you think, a left-hand thread? So I go tighten, yep, left-hand thread. I already knew that by looking at the threads on the arbor there. Just wanted to try to be a big shot. Seem to know what I'm talking about. All right. So, blade is off. Now I have much less of a chance to cut myself. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 5. I juiced all those last night, and I'm saying 9/16. Yeah, 9/16. They are bolts. They're not captive nuts underneath here. They are bolts and nuts, so you need to hold it. Make sure we're going the right way. You need to hold it on the bottom. Piece of cake. That juice really works pretty good. Something else I want to show you that I just noticed. These nuts are fine, or bolts and nuts are fine thread. So if you need new hardware, maybe you lose a nut or something, make sure you get the fine thread. The fine thread gives you very strong hold. That's probably why they did it. each have a lock washer on them too. So when I store them with the lock washer on them. These also look, I'll show you this again, that's how I store them. These also look like they're probably grade 8 hardware. So if you're replacing your hardware, I would suggest fine thread and grade 8. These are all coming off pretty easy though. It really is worth your time to juice them the night before with whatever your favorite lubricant is. WD-40 or Coil or whatever it is. These all look in great shape. I don't know that these have ever been off. Okay, let's see. Doesn't want to come out. There we go. Alright. I dropped the lock washer, never to be seen again, I'm sure. No, it's down there, I can see it. Let's try to catch this one. There we go. Okay, all of the bolts are out. Now, of course, I have to take off both of the wheels. Okay, so let's do that. I'll bring you down here. Okay, so here's the wheel. This is the lock. So these will normally just spin right out. Again, I have these juiced. So that's what the lock looks like. And then there will be a set screw. There it is. Looks like 5/32 to me. They're either 5/32 or an 1/8. And I'm going to come through the face here with my long wrench. Torque it. There we go. All right. I'm going to try to get this guy off because I juiced him quite a bit and hit him last night. I'm going to try to get him off by just kind of pounding him. These are steel. They're not plastic. They're not die cast. So I feel okay doing this. Let's see what we can get. What I'm doing is I'm pulling out and I'm trying to get behind it as much as I can. And I'm using a plastic mallet. She's already broken free. There we go. I think there we go. Comes off. Put that key in a safe place. Well, that's a huge key for a hand wheel. I'm going to rinse and repeat that on this side over here. Okay, first thing we're going to unscrew the lock. I'm going to get my long wrench and we're going to put her on this set screw. Torque that guy open. Back him out a little bit. Now this guy, I can actually get a good swing at him. Oh yeah, broke right away. There we go. Make sure I save this and this fiber washer, which looks brand new. Jeez. All right, both sides are off. As long as we're on this side, let's take off this guy here. See, so he is screwed in to a casting on the other side. There's no nut. So we can take this guy off. And we can take the bottom one off. There we go. Don't got to worry about a nut falling out. Wow, check that out. 60-year-old sawdust. All right, let's just take this pointer off. Take them off now instead of after we bend them. All right, let's see what we have here. Okay, so that's all one piece. That piece there is die cast also. I'm going to want to be careful. All right, I want to show you how this works here. This is the shaft here that goes out the front that adjusts the elevation of the blade. On the end of that shaft, there's a collar. That collar is right here. And that collar is held on by a pin. But it's not just a regular pin, all right? It's a taper pin. So if you try to punch it out from this side, it's not going to work. It's got a taper to it. So you got to punch it out from the other side. I'm just going to spin this collar by hand. And you can see right there, I get my punch in there. And I can punch that pin out. Once I punch that pin out, this collar will come off. And I should be able to then remove the other part, and I'll show you that in a sec, and then start the disassembly. So let me do that. Okay, this is the collar, and this is the pin. See, the pin only goes in that way. If I try to get the pin in the other way, it's not gonna go. So that's all very important. Also, I noticed on mine that this thing is not right in the middle of the collar this way. So what that means is when I put this back together, I got to make sure that this end of the collar goes in. It's like a 3D jigsaw puzzle. All right, so that's off. So now I should be able to take off these two screws, and then I'll get this guy off, and we should be able to slide that off. So let's try that. These screws were not pre-juiced, so let's see what happens. Oh, piece of cake. There's a lot of pitch in there. The guy was apparently sawing a lot of pine. Screw. Let's try the other guy. Yep, good. Okay, I got the spacer there too. All right. He's off. Now we're going to get this guy off that clamps him onto this pivot point here. What is that, 9/16? Probably. 9/16. Okay. We don't have to take him out. Well, you know what? We're going to take him out just in case he hits that. Okay, and now, let's see if we can slide this guy off of that. Not seeing anything retains him, he's keyed. I'm just going to try pounding him off. Let's see what happens. Now he's coming. Slowly but surely. Here we go. Don't lose that key. Okay. There we go. And I didn't drop the key. Must be my birthday. All right. So that guy's out. I also noticed that this, the worm gear down here is also pinned to that shaft. And if I unpin him and unscrew him, I'll be able to pull that shaft out. Let's see. Can't really tell which one's bigger. I'll start on this side. Now he also has just a standard collar here that's held on with an Allen screw, which I'm now taking off. And then I should be able to slide this guy off. Maybe. I'll loosen him up. Maybe. There's a washer. And that shaft is scarred a little bit, but I did get them off. So now I should be able to pull that shaft all the way off. There we go. This is that piece that was held on by the taper pin. That's gonna get wire wheeled along with everything else. All right, so we got the front shaft off. Okay, it's the same kind of thing on this other shaft. There's a pin in there, taper pin, that we gotta wrap out. Maybe the other way, huh? I don't know yet. All right, these two were also pinned by those taper pins, just like a front sight base, if you know what I'm talking to. Wink, wink. This was for the angle shaft. So now I've pulled the angle shaft out of there, and this guy should come up. Let's see. There we go. All right, so now that I got all this stuff out of the base, I can show it to you. There's basically 4 main castings. Here's the front casting, and that's where that slides on for the angle. That goes into this piece right here. We'll be greasing that or doing something there. It's got this piece here that clamps over the gear. Big heavy iron casting. We have the main one that goes across. We could unbolt this if we wanted to. There's 2 bolts on this side. There's 2 bolts on this side. We're not going to, but we could if we wanted to. And here's where that pivot is, where we took off the cinch bolt. Here's the stop for the angle. So this goes in and out to give you a precise stop at 45 degrees or whatever it is. What else can I show you here? Let's see, here's that other track right here that this guy runs in. Okay, now, if you could get to them, taking apart this thing, we were pounding out pins, we were doing everything else, it seemed, tough, and it was. Well, if you could get to them, you could take off these 2 bolts here, and that would allow this piece to come off, and you could slide that straight up. Or you may have to take off these 2 bolts also. But the metal case is right here. You can't get to them. So you pretty much got to do it, I think, the way that we did it. If you know a better way to do that without having to pound out those taper pins, you let me know down in the comments, and I would be mucho apreciado. Someone's been in here before too. I want to show you this. So we're not taking apart the spindle here, or the axle, because it's in such good shape and there's no run out, no nothing. Well, if you look here, right there, you can see someone's been in here before. So somebody has already replaced those bearings at some point in this, let's see, 53, 80, 82 year life of this thing. 72 years. Anyhow, many decades, all right? So that's probably why that's in such good shape. You can see he used a cold chisel here to pry that guy off. That's maybe not my first choice, but it is what it is. So we'll wire wheel everything here. And then we will clean up the case, because we want to get the case over here. We want to get the case cleaned up before we put everything back in there, because we have full access in here, and you can see that's all grimy and stuff to get in there. So we'll clean up all that just to show you some of the parts here. I use this caliper to determine which end was the big end and which one was the small end on those taper pins. And you can see here, worm gear and that kind of stuff. So there's another one here. That's how I took all that apart. So let's, I'll go over and wire wheel off camera, just because it's boring. Once I get all that done, I'll bring it back over here. You know, I think because this is such a nice saw, I think I'm gonna paint even the internals where you never see them. I think I'm gonna do that anyhow. And then I also think that I'm going to try some dry film lube on this stuff from my gunsmithing buddies. There's some dry film lube I'll try out, and we'll see how that works. It dries to a gray, so you'll never see it, but... All right, so let's do that. What restoration apocalypse video would be complete without a little wire wheeling? I spent half my life in front of this wire wheel. Here we go. All sorts of safety equipment on. You get the idea. An hour or two more of that. Everything about this thing screams heavy duty. Big cast iron ways. Enormous axles. All cast iron, not a piece of die cast on this thing. Even these guys are cast and machined in place, no die cast. Big nut, big axle, big bearings, big 3-belt drive system. These are steel here, the worm gears for the adjustments. So everything just screams, you know, industrial. Even down to this, they have bronze bushings in there. They could have just, look, here's a better picture of one, better view of one. They could have just, you know, left those drilled. Nope, they put bronze bearings in both axes. So it's really a heavy duty piece of kit. Some of the badging on this one can be removed by screws. This one up in here is riveted on. I don't normally like to remove those. I'll just mask that off. But these are screws, so we'll take off the angle gauge here, and we'll take off the switch. The original Delta switch, those are hard to come by from what I understand. And these have a nut on the back. They do not. They're threaded right into the heavy gauge steel housing here. Okay, so there's 2 on the outside. And that allows you to remove this cover here. I don't have any fingernails, so it's really hard. There we go. Hard for me to remove that cover. There's a couple on the inside here too that screw this thing. We had to remove the other ones so we could get access to these. Okay. Which one? Where's the other one? Down here? Right here. There's the other one. Okay, switch comes out. Just make note of this right now. This was cut off here when they took the motor out. Very heavy 2-conductor wire with that jute or sisal insulation in there too. But I guess we should address this. The cast iron bottom here, I'm going to do both inside and out. I realize you won't be able to see the inside, but I'm going to wire wheel that anyhow. And the outside. The case itself is in pretty good shape. I will just give that a light sanding, and I can feel stuff there. And then I will give that just a color coat, because I don't plan on going through to the primer on that. The base, on the other hand, because it's rusted like you see it here, I'll have to do a primer coat and then a color coat. So let's get started on that. Again, I'm sure you've seen me do this multiple times, but cupped wheel, knotted wire brush, all sorts of PPG, and here we go. Get the idea. I won't have you suffer through me doing the rest of this. Wire wheeling done, check. So now we're gonna go on to orbital sander, 80 grit along the outside. Again, the outside's in such good condition that I'm just knocking off the junk on there. You kind of get the idea with that. All four sides, corners. It just knocks it down to give it a nice smooth finish for the paint. All right, so I'm just gonna do the bottom with the self-etching primer, and then I'll do color coats on the other stuff. So there we go. We'll let that dry, then we'll give her another coat, and then we'll let that dry, and then we'll give her a color coat, and we'll let that dry overnight, and then we will give her the second color coat. Here we are after 2 color coats. Pulled all the masking off. Looks good. Nice even color. That primer really helps. So now we should put the stuff back together. Probably the first thing we should do is probably hit the points of lubrication. That would be these keyways here, just a little bit of grease. Okay, this guy, here. And I try to coat these with a very light coat, but a very thorough coat. Make sure I try to get every little coverage. And then this shaft here that accepts that arbor. And what I'll also do is get the arbor hole in here. I'm not being liberal, I'm just putting a little bit in there, but I want to get both surfaces. Same here, the inside here. Be careful on these. I have cut myself before. Sometimes there's a little burr. I do my best to deburr them, but sometimes there's a little burr there. And it can cut you, especially when you got grease on your finger. It softens your skin so much. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to partially assemble this and then stick it in to the case. The reason we're going to do that is it's lighter. These things are heavy, okay? So, you know, you want to take it a little easy. All right, so now there is a trick to putting it into the stand, and I'll show you that. I've only done a small number of the actual Delta Unisaws from this era, maybe 5 or 6, and it took me a while to work this up, but it does work on all of them with some caveats. So this is the way I do it. I slip this guy in. There we go. That one went pretty easy. Okay, so you can get it in there like that. That is not really a secret, not really a trick, but it's something I have found that works. Okay, so that went in really easy. I've struggled with them before. All right, so a couple other things. Let us slide this guy on, and he should slide on fairly easy because I got him lubricated. Very nice. And we are going to hold out on tightening up this bolt that cinches it onto that shaft. We're going to hold on doing that until we get everything in there, as per my typical. We have the blade guard. We're also going to hold on to this guy right now. We're going to try to get the other parts in there just because we can see them a little better. Might as well just position these guys. hold this in. And we're not going to tighten them up at all. We're just going to put them in there with their lock washer on them. Just so we get it all lined up. Sometimes it's hard to line these guys up. Oops. All right, all lined up. All right, what's next? Let us put in these fresh off the wire wheel axles, I'll call them. Each of these axles, this one and the other one, has this hole drilled in them. And into that hole goes these brass rods with rounded ends, okay? 2 of them go into each hole. It's also important that you keep these brass bullets, they look like bullets, separate or the same. Because they are of different lengths, they gotta go back in the same hole, all right? And those rub on those bronze bushings. That's what they're for. All right, so let's put these in. Also, I'm going to take this time to grease up these bushings that they're going into. Okay? Very thoroughly. Not a lot, but thorough. Okay, and I got the other 2 also here I got to grease up. And I'm sorry you can't see this, but you know where they are. Okay, so the rod is completely stripped and we're installing it from the front, and we go through that first bushing, which is lubricated. Then we slide on this worm gear. It's hard to do with one hand. Okay, we don't need to pin it yet. Okay, we slide on the worm gear. We slide on the stop collar. The stop collar is the one with the set screw in it, not the one that gets pinned on. So he goes on. Then we can push it through and we can slide the collar with the taper pin on it. Remember what I told you, these are, make sure you get the same one on the same one. All right, so that's how, and you can see I'm lifting this up. This will still rotate. We haven't got her cinched down, right? So we'll rotate it up out of the way. We'll put that gear in there, and then we'll be able to move that and put that taper pin in. So we'll put those 2 taper pins in now. Okay, so this is a short taper pin. The short taper pin, because I kept them separated, I know goes into the worm gear. So I'm gonna try to get that guy in there. And remember, they're tapered, so they go one way only. You can't put the big end in the small end. It doesn't work that way. This longer taper pin is going to go in this collar in the back here. They're a little tough to line up, but I'm sure you can do it. Okay? We're just setting them in there for right now so they hold their spot. I'm just going to tap that very lightly with a ball peen hammer. Okay, and I'm going to tighten that collar down very lightly with, I believe that was an 1/8 inch, right? No, it was a 5/8. Nothing gets tightened yet, okay? Just a little bit. So now we have that first rod in there. Now, we'll put on the second rod. This guy. Now I have seen guys mark these holes, the big hole and the small hole, seem pretty obvious to me, but you know, sometimes you got poor lighting or whatever, maybe you want to mark those as to which one's which. Same process here, okay? We are going to, remember I already have those two lubed down there. We're gonna stick this guy through the first one, the first bushing. Then we're gonna slide this guy on, and this guy is the stop collar. So we had to slide the worm gear onto the bushing and engage the sprocket at the same time. It's pretty easy to do. It sounds harder than it is. But because this rod is already supported by both of those bushings, so it's pretty easy. Okay, why did you do all that stuff just finger tight? Well, I did all that stuff just finger tight because getting it in there in the first part is difficult. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen them. I'm going to back those rods out just a little bit, enough so I can slip in those brass pieces. Okay. I have found if you put the brass pieces in there and then you try to get all that stuff assembled afterwards, that those brass pieces fall out 87 times. Ask me how I know. Let's put on this piece. This piece holds the pointer. It's got these two really long screws that go in. And I'll have to get the right screwdriver. And he also has a locating pin on him. So these are the two screws here, and here's that locating pin. You'll see it down here. Locating pin goes in the locating pin hole. Screws go in the screw hole. Next we'll put on the support for the angle axle. And you can see I've polished these beautifully machined screws to a nice polish. This guy just slips on here. Here's another reason I didn't torque those down. I'm not quite lined up here. Okay, then I moved him over so he's lined up. Ask me how I know about that. I've tightened those down before and have these screw holes not line up before. But I'm much wiser now. Experience is something you get right after you need it. You know, I don't want to make two-part videos, but in order to go to the amount of detail that I think I need to go into to make it useful for you guys, they end up being 2 parts long. So this is the end of the first part. Check the link in the description for the second part. Sorry about that.